Let's get something straight from the beginning. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. You don't break through by wanting more. You break through by becoming more. Because goals by themselves mean nothing. Everybody has them. Everybody writes them down. Everybody dreams in bold fonts and clean vision boards. But only a few cross the line. Only a few turn those dreams into outcomes. Why? Because most people set goals with their mind but never rewire their identity. They want new results, but they keep the same habits. They want big wins, but still run from small disciplines. They want change, but don't change themselves. And here's the truth. No one wants to say, your life doesn't rise by motivation. It rises by transformation. And transformation begins the moment you stop blaming, stop delaying, and start owning your responsibility for where you are. The first barrier? Excuses. The most seductive comfort in the world. The drug that delays destiny. The enemy that comes dressed as logic, as fairness, as reason. Excuses are elegant. They sound noble. I didn't have time. I wasn't ready. They didn't support me. I'm too tired, too young, too old, too busy. But here's what no one told you. As long as you argue for your limitations, you get to keep them. Excuses are chains. They don't hold you back, you hold on to them. And if you ever want to be free, you have to stop negotiating with your own captivity. You have to be ruthless with your distractions. You have to be disciplined with your focus. You have to be brutally honest with your patterns. Because here's the truth. Your results are never random. They're repeating. If you don't like where you are, check what you're repeating. And if you want to move forward, you don't need more goals. You need more alignment. You need to stop asking, what do I want? And start asking, who must I become to receive it? Your goals don't demand more effort. They demand more identity. The version of you that hits that goal already exists, but they live on the other side of your discipline. They breathe in your habits. They wake up with your routines. And if you don't become them, your goal stays a fantasy. And fantasies, they fade. But visions backed by action, they shift reality. Because the enemy isn't out there, it's in here. Inside the hesitation. Inside the self-doubt. Inside the story you keep telling yourself that says, maybe I'm not ready. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe people like me don't succeed like that. That voice, that tiny, fearful voice, is not truth. It's your old self fighting for survival. And every time you hesitate, every time you let that voice speak louder than your vision, you give your past permission to own your future. But let me remind you of something. You were not built to live behind your barriers. You were built to break them. You were built to rise, not because it's easy, but because something in you refuses to stay small. Every personal barrier you've ever faced is not a wall. It's a mirror. It reflects what you believe about yourself. And the moment you upgrade the belief, the barrier begins to break. You want to know why some people succeed no matter what? It's not talent. It's not luck. It's not connections. It's certainty, not arrogance, not ego, but an unshakable belief that says, this is mine, and I'm going to get it no matter how long it takes, no matter how hard it gets. That certainty is forged in pain. It's built in solitude. It's carved in late nights, early mornings, and silent work when no one is watching. You overcome barriers by becoming unavailable to your old excuses. You overcome them by outlasting the discomfort. You overcome them by training your emotions to submit to your mission. Because emotions lie. Comfort lies. Fear lies. But commitment tells the truth. And here's that truth. If you're willing to pay the price, you can have the life. But you cannot negotiate with the cost. You can't pay halfway and expect full transformation. You can't say, I'll do what it takes, and then shrink when what it takes gets uncomfortable. You must be all in. All in on the vision. All in on the grind. All in on the identity that says, I am no longer available for mediocrity. That's the shift. not doing more, becoming different. When your standard changes, your outcome changes. When your self-talk changes, your habits change. When your internal thermostat rises, your reality catches up. Because once your mind catches fire, your life cannot stay the same. You see, most people think achieving goals is about willpower. They try to push through, but willpower fades. It's like a battery, it dies the more you use it. You don't need willpower. You need structure. You need systems that don't rely on feeling motivated. They rely on who you are becoming. Because when your systems are built on your standards, success becomes your default, not your wish. So let's talk systems. Do you have a morning routine that builds your identity before the world steals your attention? Do you have a plan that protects your focus before distractions devour your day? Do you have standards for your energy, your health, your time, or do you let the world decide who you'll be today? Without systems, your goals stay emotional. But when you structure your habits, your discipline becomes automatic. And once something becomes automatic, it becomes inevitable. That's the difference between goal setters and goal achievers. One writes intentions. The other builds identity-backed infrastructure. But structure isn't just about tasks. It's about environment too. You will never outgrow the room you refuse to leave. You will never evolve if you stay surrounded by people who normalize your limitations. If everyone around you settles, you will shrink. If everyone around you doubts, you will hesitate. But if you place yourself in rooms that demand your growth, you will rise to match the room. Sometimes the greatest personal barrier isn't fear. It's familiarity. You've built comfort around who you've always been, even if who you've always been is silently suffocating your future. So tear it down. Tear down the stories. Tear down the self-sabotage. Tear down the calendar full of things that don't move you forward. Replace it with alignment, with precision, with people and places and habits that match the level of life you say you want. You don't become elite by hoping. You become elite by design. You architect your future, one routine, one boundary, one belief at a time. And yes, it will get hard. Resistance will rise. You'll want to quit. You'll feel like you're failing. But hear me, that's not failure. That's friction. And friction is feedback. It means you're moving. It means the old you is dying and the new you is being born. Don't run from it. Lean in. You don't become unbreakable by avoiding resistance. You become unbreakable by being tempered through it. And on the other side of that process is a version of you that doesn't just achieve goals, they shatter ceilings. Then let's bring it home, not with hype, but with truth. Not with noise, but with fire. Here's the truth. You don't need more goals. You need more conviction. You don't need another how-to. You need a why so deep it makes quitting feel like betrayal. You don't need more strategies. You need a spiritual refusal to live one more day beneath your potential. Because once your why becomes non-negotiable, your how figures itself out. Once you decide that this version of you is no longer acceptable, the world begins to respond. Doors open, strength rises, people show up. But none of it moves until you do. So stand up right now and decide who you are. Decide what you're no longer tolerating. Decide what you're going to chase like your life depends on it, because in a very real way it does. You are not waiting on clarity. You are not waiting on motivation. You are not waiting on timing. You are waiting on permission, and that permission must come from within. Today is not just another day. It's the day you choose to own your life, to own your time, to own your standards, to own your voice, to own your vision, to own your outcome. And when you do, when you finally stop negotiating with mediocrity and start executing on your future, something powerful happens. You stop being controlled by circumstances and you start becoming a creator of momentum. You stop avoiding fear and start inviting greatness. You stop doubting your dreams and start living inside them, because you're no longer the person who talks about goals. You're the person who builds them. You're the person who executes. You're the person who rises. You're the person who breaks through. No more waiting. No more hoping. No more playing small. This is your time. This is your mission. This is your moment. And it begins right now. Let's start with one truth. No one can escape. Your mindset is the operating system of your life. It's not just how you think, it's how you see, how you act, how you respond, how you build, how you survive, how you win. And if that operating system is fragile, everything you try to build will eventually crash. A weak mindset always looks for comfort. A strong mindset looks for growth. A weak mindset avoids risk. A strong mindset embraces challenge. A weak mindset fears failure. A strong mindset uses failure. So the question is not, do you have a mindset? You already do. The question is it solid? Is it trained, sharpened, unshakable under pressure? Because here's the truth. You don't rise to your goals. You fall to the strength of your mindset. When pressure hits, you don't operate at your potential. You operate at the level of your mental conditioning. So how do we develop a solid mindset? Not by accident, not by waiting, not by reading one quote and getting inspired for 5 minutes. You build a solid mindset like you build a fortress stone by stone, choice by choice, discipline by discipline. And the first brick? Clarity. Clarity is the beginning of all inner power. You must know who you are and what you want. Because when you don't know what you want, everything becomes a distraction. But when you are clear, truly clear on what matters to you, the noise fades, the excuses shrink, the path reveals itself. A solid mindset begins with a solid vision, not a fantasy, a vision, something rooted in truth, something you're willing to bleed for. Clarity isn't about pretty words, it's about identity. It's knowing this is who I am. This is what I stand for. This is where I'm going. Next comes responsibility. Because clarity without ownership is just daydreaming. You cannot have a strong mind while blaming the world. You cannot think like a leader while talking like a victim. The moment you start saying, I am responsible, everything shifts. Your language changes. Your posture changes. Your questions change. Instead of, why me? You ask, what now? Instead of who will save me, you ask, what can I build with this? Responsibility isn't blame, it's power. It says, I may not control what happens, but I control how I show up. And when you start showing up consistently, intentionally, daily discipline is born. And discipline, my friend, is the muscle of mindset. Discipline is not motivation. Discipline shows up long after motivation is gone. Discipline is what kicks in when the excitement fades. When no one's watching, when it's cold, when it's hard, when it's boring, when your feelings tell you to quit. Discipline says, we keep going. You want a solid mindset? Train yourself to do hard things, especially when you don't feel like it. Because every time you do what you said you'd do, even when it's uncomfortable, you prove something to yourself. I can trust me. And that trust, it becomes unshakable. Because the most powerful force in the world is a person who has earned their own respect. But it doesn't stop there. You have to feed your mind daily, intentionally, strategically. Because a strong mind doesn't grow in silence. It grows in conversation with books, with wisdom, with mentors, with ideas that challenge and stretch and sharpen you. Starve your mind of wisdom, it weakens. Feed your mind truth, perspective, insight, and it sharpens into steel. A solid mindset is not just positive thinking. It's accurate thinking. It's seeing reality for what it is and choosing power over panic. It's facing setbacks without folding. It's meeting adversity with calm eyes and a steady hand. And let's be clear, adversity is not the enemy. Adversity is the trainer, the sculptor, the fire that forges. A weak mindset runs from adversity. A solid mindset says, thank you, now let's grow. You build that response through repetition. You face the fire, not once, but over and over until your nervous system learns, this won't break me. Then comes focus. A scattered mind cannot stand strong. Clarity gives you direction. Responsibility gives you control. Discipline gives you strength. But focus gives you accuracy. Focus is not just avoiding distraction, it's choosing your battles. It's saying no to almost everything so you can say hell yes to what matters. It's eliminating noise, cutting fluff, ignoring opinions, and locking in on your path with tunnel vision. A solid mindset says, I'm not here to please, I'm here to build. I'm not here to impress, I'm here to rise. I don't need validation, I have direction. And with focus comes patience. Because strength without patience is fragile. You must know that greatness takes time, mastery takes seasons, and mindset real, unshakable mindset is not built in a weekend. It is carved over years. So stop looking for instant transformation. Start stacking quiet victories. 1 rep, 1 hour, 1 decision at a time. Brick by brick, you are becoming unbreakable. Decision by decision, you are laying the foundation of a mind that does not collapse under pressure, that does not beg for comfort, that does not yield to fear. You want power? You want freedom? You want influence? It starts here inside. Because until the war within is won, every external victory will feel empty. But when your mind is solid, your life becomes unstoppable. Not easy, but unstoppable. Because the person with a strong mind doesn't wait for the storm to pass. They walk into it. They carry the calm. They become the storm. You become the storm not because you enjoy chaos, but because you are no longer afraid of it. Because you've built a mind that holds peace in pressure, focus in distraction, and fire in silence. Most people crumble under weight, but not you, because you've trained for it. You've practiced thinking clearly when others panic. You've conditioned your thoughts like a warrior sharpens a blade daily, deliberately, relentlessly. So when the world throws noise, your mind stays still. When circumstances shake, your foundation holds. And that stillness, it becomes your weapon, your edge, your shield. Because a solid mindset is not loud, it's calm, it's composed. It doesn't need to announce itself, it simply endures. It executes, and it elevates everyone around it. And here's something no one teaches enough. A solid mindset isn't rigid, it's adaptable. Strength is not about resistance, it's about resilience. The oak stands tall, but it's the bamboo that bends and survives the storm. So train your mind to flex, not snap, to adjust, not quit, to evolve and not retreat. Because a truly powerful mind isn't the one that always pushes forward blindly. It's the one that knows when to pivot without losing purpose. Adaptability doesn't mean weakness, it means wisdom. It means you're not attached to methods, you're committed to the mission. The how may shift, the why never does. And that's what sets solid thinkers apart. They know what matters. They filter fast. They recover faster. They make decisions not from fear, but from vision. Vision is what keeps your mindset from falling into survival mode. Because survival is instinct. But vision is a discipline. It's seeing not just what is, but what could be. It's not just reacting, it's leading. So build your mindset on vision. See the long game. Speak the truth, even when it shakes your voice. Hold the standard, even when no one else does. Look ahead not with fantasy, but with intention. And work relentlessly. Not because hustle is the goal, but because alignment demands effort. When you believe in something deeply, you show up like it matters. You wake up and you build not someday, but today. Not perfectly, but fully. Because here's the ultimate truth. A solid mindset is not about always feeling strong. It's about acting strong, especially when you don't feel like it. It's about doing the work when the motivation is gone. Staying the course when the crowd disappears. Choosing progress when comfort is calling. Because progress is built in silence. In the moments no one sees. In the hours no one applauds. In the decisions that feel small but shape everything. You want to develop a solid mindset? Then embrace the boredom. Embrace the repetition. Embrace the grind. Because greatness isn't forged in excitement, it's forged in consistency. And consistency is not sexy. It's not glamorous. It's not a highlight reel. It's waking up when you'd rather sleep. It's showing up when no one's watching. It's doing it again and again and again until your mind no longer negotiates with weakness. That's where transformation happens. In the ordinary, in the invisible, in the unseen hours where discipline drowns out doubt. A solid mindset is not built by chance, it's engineered. Built with the bricks of clarity, responsibility, discipline, focus, patience, and adaptation. Held together by repetition. Strengthened by struggle. Elevated through vision. It's not about being the smartest, it's about being the most committed, the most consistent, the most unshakable. Because the world bends to those who refuse to fold, to those who lead themselves first, before ever trying to lead anyone else. And that is the work. Not flashy, not fast, but real. And the more you commit to that work, the more the results take care of themselves. You won't need to chase success. Your mindset will attract it. You won't need to seek approval. Your clarity will command it. You won't need to fear failure. Your resilience will outlast it. And when that mindset is in place, you become dangerous. Not because you're arrogant, but because you're aligned. Because you've done the inner work that makes the outer work inevitable. You don't hope anymore, you build. You don't wait anymore, you move. You don't collapse anymore, you rise. Again and again and again. That is what it means to have a solid mindset. Not a moment, a lifestyle, not a feeling, a foundation, not something you visit, but something you become. Everyone wants to win when things are easy, when the sun is shining, when the money's flowing, when the relationships feel smooth and the path looks clear. But the true test of your character, the moment that separates the talkers from the doers, the average from the extraordinary, is how you show up when the sky turns dark, when the storm hits, when no one's cheering and everything feels like it's falling apart. It's not what you do when you feel strong. It's what you do when your knees are shaking, your faith is flickering, and life is whispering in your ear. Maybe you're not enough. Because here's the truth. Winners aren't born in comfort. They're forged in crisis. They are built in the shadows of doubt, in the back rooms of disappointment, in the silence when no one is watching and no one is clapping. You don't learn how to win in easy times. You learn how to win when everything is screaming at you to give up, when life pulls the rug, when the plans fall apart, when people turn their backs. That's where the real ones rise. Not in grand moments, but in gritty ones. Not with perfect timing, but with relentless heart. Let me tell you something no one puts on a billboard. Pain is a prerequisite. If you're hurting right now, if you're walking through hell in your career, your health, your finances, your mind, you are not being punished. You're being prepared. Because growth doesn't come in comfort. Growth comes when your back is against the wall and you still choose to fight. It comes when the world tells you to quit, but something deeper inside you says, not yet. You see, there's a kind of strength you can only earn in the fire. You can't fake it. You can't download it. You can't borrow it from someone else. You have to become it. And you only become it by staying in the fight longer than your fear says you can. So let me ask you, who are you when things go wrong? Who are you when the money dries up, the doors slam shut, and the path disappears? Because that version of you, that's who you really are. And you get to decide whether that version crumbles or creates something new. Winning in difficult situations is not about avoiding the storm. It's about learning how to walk through it without losing your fire, without losing your voice, without losing yourself. Mindset is everything, and not the fake kind. Not positive vibes only while your world is on fire. I'm talking about the kind of mindset that gets back up bloody and says, this won't end me. The kind that says, this is not how my story ends. This pain will not define me. This season may break things, but it will also build things. You can't control the storm, but you can control your center. You can control your breath. You can control the decision to keep showing up, even if your hands are shaking. even if your voice trembles, even if your faith is held together by threads. Because courage isn't loud, it's quiet. It's showing up again and again and again, when every part of you wants to run. The people you admire most, the heroes, the leaders, the legends, they didn't become great in spite of their challenges. They became great because of them. The heartbreak shaped them. The failure sharpened them. The betrayal taught them who they were. The rejection gave them redirection. They didn't just survive hard times. They used them. They turned pain into fuel, loss into lessons, obstacles into evolution. Because the truth is, and don't ever forget this, every difficult moment is raw material for greatness. You're either using the pressure or being crushed by it. There is no in between. But what does it look like to win when everything's stacked against you? It doesn't always look like trophies or applause. Sometimes winning looks like getting out of bed when you want to stay buried. Sometimes it's making that one hard phone call. Sometimes it's walking away from the old version of you that's no longer serving your future. It's not always loud. It's not always cinematic, but it's real, and it's yours. You win when you stay aligned with your values, when it's inconvenient. You win when you lead with integrity, when no one's watching. You win when you choose peace over revenge, growth over comfort, faith over fear. And those wins, they may be invisible to the world, but they make you undeniable over time. Because when you do the work in the dark, you don't have to beg for the spotlight. It finds you. Resilience isn't just endurance. It's adaptation. You don't just hang in there. You adjust. You learn. You stretch. You grow sharper, wiser, deeper. You use the difficulty to become more dangerous in the best possible way. Not reckless, not destructive, but unshakable. Because you've been through fire, and you know how to walk through it now without losing your soul. This is the power no one can give you. And more importantly, no one can take it from you. Not circumstances, not critics, not even failure. You become rooted, clear, centered, purpose-driven, even when the pressure mounts. And that's when life begins to shift. Not because it's easier, but because you're no longer easy to knock over. You've built a foundation inside that holds, even when the outside breaks. And that kind of strength, that's what builds empires. That's what changes legacies. That's what wins battles that no one else even sees. Leadership is not a title. It's not a corner office or a nameplate or 1,000 followers nodding in agreement. Leadership is a weight, a sacred responsibility, a fire that must be carried not for your own glory, but for the growth of others. And if you do it right, you don't just lead people, you lift them. You don't just give orders, you give identity. Because real leadership is not about being in charge. It's about being charged with a vision that's bigger than you, a purpose that stretches beyond your comfort, and a commitment to truth that does not waver when tested. And here's the truth. Every generation redefines leadership. But the principles, the truths, they do not change. They echo through time. They whisper through the decades. They burn through noise and trends and surface-level hype. Because leadership, at its core, is timeless. It is not dictated by technology. It is not confined to platforms. It is not reshaped by fashion or filtered by popularity. It is a foundation, a way of being, a standard you carry even when the world is too distracted to notice. The greatest leaders, from ancient kings to modern CEOs, from battlefield generals to high school mentors, all carry the same flame. It's the flame of responsibility, the flame of vision, the flame of sacrifice. They all understood one thing. Leadership isn't about having power over people. It's about holding power for people. It's about becoming the kind of person others can trust with their future. And trust, that's the real currency. You don't lead with fear. You don't lead with manipulation. You don't lead with charisma alone. You lead with trust, earned slowly, kept fiercely. And trust is built not in speeches, but in standards, in how you show up when the spotlight is gone, in how you respond when the pressure rises, in how you treat those who can't offer you anything but honesty. If people trust your character, they will follow your vision. So, if you want to truly lead, you must first lead yourself, because you cannot take people somewhere you haven't gone. You cannot demand discipline in others if you make excuses in private. You cannot call for vision if you're still hiding from clarity. Leadership begins not with authority, but with alignment. You must become the standard you speak about. You must become the proof before you become the plan. Because people don't follow instructions, they follow example. And this is where most fail. They want the influence without the inner work. They want the loyalty without the integrity. They want the spotlight without carrying the torch. But you can't fake depth. You can't shortcut trust. You either embody the values or you violate them. There is no neutral ground. Because every time you speak, your team is watching. Your family is watching. The next generation is watching. And what they need from you is not inspiration without substance. They need consistency without cracks. Your words mean nothing if your habits scream something else. Your mission is just noise if your mindset is still at war with itself. That's why real leadership begins in silence, in the moments before the decisions, in the way you carry your own chaos, in the standards you set when no one is looking. You don't wait to lead when the time is right. You lead when it's hard, when it's unclear, when it's unpopular. That's when your voice becomes a compass, not a microphone. Because leadership is not about being liked. It's about being trusted. And trust often requires saying what no one else will say, doing what no one else wants to do, making the call that others will avoid. You cannot fear being misunderstood, because if your values are true, they will outlive the criticism. And if your vision is real, the right people will find their way to it, not because you shouted louder, but because you stood stronger. And when it comes to generations old and new, the true test of leadership is not how much you teach, but how much you're willing to learn. You must be rooted in wisdom, but flexible in expression. You must honor the past without becoming trapped in it. You must welcome the future without forgetting what matters. Every generation sees the world differently, and that's not a threat. It's an opportunity. Because leadership that lasts is leadership that listens. Younger generations don't want perfect leaders. They want honest ones, ones who admit mistakes, ones who ask questions, ones who know the weight of their words. And older generations, they want relevance, but they also want reverence. They want to know their sacrifices meant something, that their scars became bridges, that their lessons are not discarded, but woven into progress. That's your job. To stand between generations, not as a divider, but as a bridge. To take the strength of the past and the potential of the future and forge something timeless. Something rooted in character, not clout. In courage, not convenience. Because the leaders who last, the ones remembered long after their voices fall silent, are not the loudest in the room. They are the deepest. They don't need to dominate. They don't need to shine. They need to serve. And not in a way that begs for recognition, but in a way that builds people, that raises standards, that strengthens culture, that multiplies vision through the hearts of others. Because service isn't weakness. It's the highest form of strength. It says, I am here not to be above you, but to walk with you. And to serve like that, you must be humble enough to admit you don't know everything. You're not always right. You're not the hero in every story. In fact, great leaders don't need to be the hero at all. They raise heroes. They pour courage into others. They don't hoard the light, they reflect it. And in doing so, they create movements, not monuments. But that kind of leadership, it requires radical ownership. No blaming, no hiding. No, that's not my fault. If something breaks under your watch, you own it. If someone falls under your leadership, you learn from it. You don't run from responsibility, you grow inside it. Because leadership isn't about comfort, it's about accountability. You take the hit. You stand in the fire. You look people in the eye and say, this is on me and I'll fix it. And that kind of ownership builds resilience. Because let's be honest, Leading people will break your heart. It will test your patience. It will stretch your capacity. You'll be misunderstood, betrayed, ignored. You'll give everything and watch people walk away like it was nothing. And still you stay. Still you build. Still you rise. Because resilience isn't just about bouncing back. It's about growing stronger while you carry the weight. It's about continuing to believe in the mission, even when no one else claps, even when the room goes quiet, even when your hands shake and your voice is tired. You show up again and again and again, because your presence, your consistency becomes the proof, the evidence that says this matters, the signal that says you're not alone. Because sometimes the most powerful leadership isn't in your speeches, it's in your stability. And if you really want to lead across generations, you must give more than instructions. You must give identity. Help people see who they are. Remind them of what they can become. Pull out the greatness that's hiding beneath insecurity, pain, and doubt. That's not management. That's ministry. That's not systems. That's spirit. That's the difference between a boss and a builder. So build. Speak life into people who are used to silence. Believe in those who've forgotten how to believe in themselves. Lead in such a way that your presence is not about being needed, but about empowering others to no longer need you. That's legacy. That's leadership. And when your leadership becomes a mirror, when people see their own potential more clearly because of how you showed up, then you haven't just led a generation. You've lifted it.